It was Ronald Reagan's famous words, or at least his golden rule for Republicans, which many other conservative parties took to heart and taking it as their own golden rule. And that was, "Thou shalt never attack a fellow Republican." And this sort of got rolled out to many other conservative parties, even during the 80s. You know, thou shalt not attack a fellow conservative. And particularly now, where we have had such an insane couple of years of political Tory infighting, just sheer madness in the political realm, there has been a few incidents of open, Tory fighting. Of course, the infamous Tory leadership election just last year got pretty mudslinging. But moreover, on the surface, at least, because it's when you look below the surface or pull back the curtain, that's where you see the real mess the party is in. But on the surface, there appears to be some form of party unity. Except, of course, we are now seeing Tory moderates looking at what is being said by the current government, by people like Lee Anderson, by people like Jacob Rees-Mogg, and are going, I'm being turned off by what they're saying, and the fact that my MP or other Conservative MPs aren't saying anything against Lee Anderson. They're not pushing back. And this could become a big point in turning especially Tory moderates off voting at the next election, or bringing those Tory moderates over to voting Lib Dem, which they are most likely to vote for. So this is pretty significant that we are now seeing Tory moderates risk their reputation by not saying things like what's happened with Lee Anderson recently, saying, yeah, I don't agree with Lee Anderson's comments. I think they were out of line. Instead, we see some Tory moderates back Lee Anderson. So this could have, I think, a sizable effect on potentially the next general election, and is going to certainly affect a lot of people in the. And we see this instantly with one of the people who defended Lee Anderson after those comments, Alex Chalk. And this is highly pointed because this became sort of a feature, political graffiti. And this is what The Guardian reported on this. So, as political graffiti goes, the message to the Conservative MP, Alex Chalk, was scrawled on some steps in the centre of his Cheltenham constituency, was polite, if not pointed, saying, F off back to France. It began using the slightly coy asterisks of really Alex. For baffled locals in the genteel Regency town who have not been following politics during the summer recess, it was a reference to Chalk's defence of the inflammatory comments about asylum seekers made last week by Lee Anderson, a fellow Tory MP and one of the party's vice chairs. And we said it very, very clearly. Why on earth would you put Lee Anderson, one of the most ineloquent people when it comes to political language, into, well, such a prime position? Because ultimately, he is one of the people responsible for running elections for the Conservative Party. I think it was put out of one, desperation, and two, because I think he went to Rishi Sunak and said, "Hey, Rishi, I can, win you some red wall seats, or at least keep you some red wall seats at the next general election." Now, certainly in the May local elections, that didn't happen. They lost a lot of those valuable council seats. And even Lee Anderson is on course, by the looks of it, to lose his seat at the next general election. And of course, what happens? What happens to these MPs that do this? What happens to their reputation? Because especially to a Conservative MP, reputation in your local town can mean a lot. And if you lose it, then that's pretty important, especially if you are a moderate. And lots of Tories, certainly during the summer, are making the political calculation of, do they get involved in these culture wars? Now, remember, so far in the UK, the public has been incredibly clear that we do not want to see our MPs, our politicians, engage in culture wars. It is not the top of list of people's concerns when people are asked, what are your top things MPs to do? Well, it's NHS, cost of living crisis, energy crisis, the economy. These culture war issues are nowhere to be seen. But this is what the hard right wants to do because they've got nothing else to fight on. And even here, it says it in the article. So the calculation for the Conservatives, and one being made on a near daily basis by a number of Tory MPs, is whether this relentless focus on subjects such as small boats could push away traditional supporters with the less appetite for populism. And remember why they are making this. The Liberal Democrats have overturned heavy Conservative majorities in a string of by-elections since 2021, in part thanks to the Tory voters repelled by the antics of Boris Johnson, who either stayed home or switched sides. Now, we've talked before about those who stayed home. There's this missing 10%, because not all Conservatives changed sides. They didn't all go out and vote for a different party. Some stayed home out of sheer embarrassment that they did not want to vote for the party. They felt that they could just not vote for the Conservative Party. Now, that appears to be staying the same at the moment in time. That appears to be staying the moment in time. Now, of course, when it comes to a general election, how many of that 10% will stay home? Well, we'll have to see. But so far, when you look at voting intentions, they're staying home. And it tends to be these moderate Tories who are massively turned off by this populist twist that Boris Johnson took the party into. And that many MPs, including people like Lee Anderson, Suella Braverman, seem to be absolutely hell-bent on focusing on, when in reality, the country has a myriad of different issues that they just don't seem to be concentrating on. And that is highly annoying to these Tory moderates. And then they feel they can't vote for their party anymore because of that. We've seen Tories come out and say that they feel politically homeless. And that is quite significant. That is quite significant indeed when you've got Tory voters coming out and saying that. So how much will this play into a general election? I think quite highly. And it comes down to that 10%. Do they stay at home? Do they get out and hold their noses and vote Conservative? Or do they vote Lib Dem? And that is the decision many Conservative MPs are making. Do they risk upsetting their traditional voter base. Which, to be fair, we have seen the Tory party upset since 2016. Or do they go into this populism and roll the dice and see what happens? Who knows? Who knows what will happen? But certainly, the Conservative Party conference in September will, I think, set the tone, will set the standard, and of course, we'll probably know more about potentially when we're going to get a general election. But also, it'll be, as we've said, Rishi Sunak's last chance really to impress those, shall we say, stay-at-home voters to go out and vote. And remember, so far, they've been very, very much upset by Rishi Sunak. So what happens? Will they stay at home? Well, only time will tell. But of course, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to help support the channel, the Patreon page, the one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, the Pony Club down below as well. So, as always, until next time, we'll see you all then.